Good morning. This is the BLAINESWORLD podcast that can be found each week on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn. It can also be found on Spotify, a whole bunch of other places. If you look for it, you can find it. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, and I'm here in my lovely downtown studio in Fairview, North Carolina. And each week we focus on the positive news and information about people and organizations in both Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And toward that end, it's my pleasure to introduce two of my favorite folks, and they are Savanna Shaw and Shelia Sumpter, and you can wave to all your fans and friends who are watching this.
Hello, everybody.
Okay, so you've now met Savanna and Shelia, and I don't have formal bios in front of me, but that's kind of just as well, because what I'd rather have you do is kind of maybe just give the Reader's Digest version of your background. I'll start off with Savanna. If you keep this to under like 5 or 10 minutes, that would be great, Savanna.
Sounds good.
If you could just kind of tell your background leading up to this.
Yeah, well, so my name is Savanna Shaw. I'm a 16-year-old junior at Haywood Early College. So I'll graduate high school with my high school diploma and my associates in science. My favorite roles that I've had with kids at Heart include Sister Mary Patrick, Crutchy, Flounder, and now Lady Larkin.
And so you'll be graduating this coming June?
I'll be graduating not this coming June, but the one after, 2024.
Okay, and then after you graduate, what, retirement?
I wish.
I'm
hoping to get a degree in biochemistry or biomedical sciences to go into genetic counseling.
Okay, and hopefully will you continue acting as well?
Yes.
Okay, and she mentioned before I introduce you to Shelia, or have her introduce herself, when Savanna mentions Kids at Heart, this is like no other kids program you've ever seen. And I have to give credit, of course, to Shelia on that, who I guess, did you start Kids at Heart, Shelia?
Yes, I did. I
Okay,
was the founder.
When did you start it?
In 2000, well, technically 2014, officially 2016.
Okay, and before that, if you could just give a little bit of your background, if you would, please.
I had been a professional dancer, actress, choreographer, director for a long time. And I also work with students who have learning issues such as dyslexia, ADHD. But I have been in the show business since I was 4 years old.
And when you were working with kids with special needs, did you involve them in theater as well?
Yes, we do. We actually, there's some of the best actors and actresses that we have. I mean, not necessarily with Kids at Heart, although we do have special needs kids involved in Kids at Heart. But I work at a boarding school that specializes in working with those children with special needs. They're usually highly intelligent and highly talented.
Okay. And you mentioned, for example, that you started when you were 4. Is that correct? Yes. Do you remember the first role?
I was not in a role. I was a featured dancer.
Okay.
And we did everything from USO shows because we were located in Columbus, Georgia, which is near Fort Benning Army Base. So I started off doing touring around the South. And then, like I said, the group where I studied did USO shows there. I also performed with my brother playing the piano, which was not, I mean, it was those days of, I wouldn't say vaudeville, but it felt like that.
Do you remember your first role in a show?
My first important role in a show was I played a character I played the girl who got everyone in trouble in the Children's Hour, which was an adult show. It wasn't a kid show.
How old were you? About
14, 13. This is in a professional type setting.
Okay. And which mentioned, or should just clear the air, that you weren't being typecast on that. Is that correct? That you were the girl who got it?
No. But I was the kid in the neighborhood who put on the shows, wrote the scripts, and had everybody. It's typical. Like my grandmother's back porch was the stage.
And I want Savanna to hear this idea because I've shared it with Shelia before, but I'm going to share it with you as well, Savanna. Is I really think, and I want HART to do it, Shelia, and I'll help you do it. I told you, but I want HART to do it as a fundraiser. Everybody would recreate their very first role. Okay, so for example, do you remember your first role, Savanna?
My first role was as a bird girl in Seussical Jr.
That's true.
How old were you?
Oh gosh, I was 12, I think.
Okay. Do you have was a tape of that, or do we have a record of that production?
Yes. I do.
Okay, you do have
because it was with Kids at Heart.
Okay,
yes.
Great. But I just think it would be so much of a fun fundraiser is if everybody comes to, and recreates that first role, so for the
Yes.
people that I didn't see you when you were 12, but I'd love to see that, that she'd recreate the role as a 12-year-old, or even Sheila, earlier for you, create your USO dancing tour, at the age of 4 or something. I think that'd be so much fun.
That
So
would be.
now, when you started at 12 at Kids at Heart, was that your first acting that you'd ever done?
Yes. That was the first time I'd ever performed like that.
How'd you get into that? What got you into it?
Well, so I'd been in a children's choir for 8 years, and it was just up the road from kids where Heart Theater is at. And I had some friends in the children's choir who left to go be more involved in the theater than the choir, and so I just followed suit.
No, that was something. So that was your choice, not your parents' choice.
No, that was my choice, but my parents were overjoyed because they were a bit more excited by performances than they were by choir concerts.
Okay, yeah.
However, I did work with her when she was in that program,
I
which
did.
Voices in the Laurel.
It was a
What? Oh, you had
wonderful
seen
thing.
her, or
I did a lot of choreography for them.
Okay. Now, when you saw that she was 10, did you see something in Sheila in Savannah?
In Savannah,
Yeah.
let me tell you, she is one of the most not only beautiful on the outside, but beautiful on the inside. And she catches on so quickly. And when she's on stage, there's some kind of light that comes out and just draws you to her. So as you can see, just looking at her on this podcast, she's very special.
Well, also, what blew me away in one of your performances, Savannah, was the last musical. What was the name of the musical? Was
Little Women?
Yeah, Little Women. And Savannah, first of all, I won't say you stole the show. I don't like to take away from other people. But didn't she like almost every scene she was in, she like stole the show. But what amazed me, Savannah, about that role is, so you're playing this younger woman, I guess, and then all of a sudden she came out as the older woman, and you carried it. It was such a transformation. And I love. Did you have to work on that voice for that role?
No, so I actually the first a role I had a role right before that where I had to do that same thing,
Yeah.
and it's when I played Ruby in Anne of Green Gables.
Oh,
And
okay.
so I had that practice already, but I really didn't have to work on that voice. It kind of just came naturally to how I talk in different emotional.
Oh, but it was so, I don't know, it just really was great. And I forgot, so you were in Anne of Green Gables also.
Yes.
Yes,
Sheila, was that a youth production?
it was a Kids at Heart production. Yes.
But you had some, right? You had some adults in that one as well, right?
Yes, we did. We had Suzanne Tinsley, Lynn
Right.
Donnelly, and Stephen Gagne. And they
Yeah.
graciously joined us. And I think they had a really good time. They said they did, that they loved working with our kids. As a matter of fact, Steve Lloyd, who just retired as the executive director of Heart, was in Newsies that
Oh,
you
that's right.
mentioned earlier. And I saw him the other day, and he told me how much he enjoyed the role, and if there was ever another role he could do with Kids at Heart, he wanted to do it because he loved it so much.
Okay, but yeah, but the shows you're mentioning are just so incredible, and especially Anne of Green Gables. Had you read the book, I guess, Savannah?
So no, I hadn't. Both Little Women and Anne of Green Gables, I had no idea what either of them were until after I auditioned and got casted.
Have you read the book since, or are you going to?
No, I haven't.
How
You need
about
to.
the recommendation show? I don't know if you saw it, but did you see Anne of Green Gables on Netflix?
Yes.
Yeah,
And with an E.
yeah, I loved it. Didn't you?
Yes,
Now,
very
did you
much.
see that, Savannah, before or after the show?
After, because I didn't know what it was. I was just like, oh, there's another ginger girl named Anne.
But it's just, but the shows you mentioned, Sheila, and even I hope people are catching my enthusiasm for this, because again, I almost had a rule never to see kids shows or shows with kids in them. I just didn't like them, and I'd seen some terrible ones. But the ones you're mentioning, which is really good, and like I said, adults like them to the extent Steve Lloyd, that's a great story that he wants to now be in another one. But maybe we shouldn't, Savannah, we shouldn't typecast him though. We should get him to play maybe as a kid or something, or so you're not typecasting people, Sheila.
Well, now Steve Lloyd has tried to convince me to do A Christmas Carol with young children. Just can't bring myself to do that.
Well,
I mean, very young children.
I have an offer
But we did do Hamlet in 4 pages with a group of third graders last week.
Well, that's pretty ambitious. Well, I have an offer for both Savannah and you. But there's a production I'm going to be in every year. It's Return to Bethlehem. Have you ever heard of it?
No.
Check my blog or check on Facebook.
Okay.
A church in Asheville does this. It's
Mhm.
incredible, Sheila. I should get you information on it. Return to Bethlehem, because they're looking to cast 50 people, and they tell the story that Christ, walking
Mhm.
his journey. And a couple of years ago, I was a rabbi, and this year I didn't want to be a rabbi, so I've asked to be. I asked to be baby Jesus, but I don't know.
No.
No, I don't know. But if not that, I said if not baby Jesus, I'll be a jackass, And so
Oh,
we're
okay.
looking. Sheila, if you, Savannah, if you want to join me, you could be the back part or the front part. But it's really incredible.
Woo!
They actually use real animals. They actually get a baby. They have a cast of over 50. And it's really an incredible production. I will send you information, Sheila. It's a little far away, maybe for some people in Waynesville, but it's a great chance to be in a production with no auditions, and no rehearsals, So.
Oh,
Right. So it might be of interest, to some people,
right,
I'll send
exactly.
you information. But
Thank
anyway,
you.
so we've done then a bunch of shows, and now we're leading up into this coming weekend. We're going to do one of my favorite little shows. And Sheila, if you would give the background of the show for the people not familiar with it.
Well, are you talking about Once Upon a Mattress?
No, I'm sorry, I keep saying Princess and the Pea. Once Upon a Mattress, yes.
Yes. Well, Once Upon a Mattress is the story of the Princess and the Pea. And we have the woebegone Princess Winifred, who eventually ends up at the castle because, I hate to say this, but poor Lady Larkin has gotten herself into a little bit of trouble. And she must get married, but none of the maidens in the kingdom can get married until the prince is married, Prince Dauntless. And Prince Dauntless's mother, Queen Agravain, is an overbearing woman. I mean, she's does not really want her son to get married. So she puts all these princesses through these horrible tests. And of course, none of them can pass until Winifred comes. And the prince falls in love with her. And it's a different type of princess in the Pea. It's not your typical fairy tale.
No, so this has actually been a fairy tale, is that correct?
Yes, it was a fairy tale, and it's actually the Broadway vehicle that made Carol Burnett a star.
Okay, so
She played the role of Winifred.
You have something to shoot for,
Yes.
Savannah, to that particular role. But so the other question that would really be cool to see. So it's one thing for adults to play younger, but you oftentimes have to work with, I guess, kids or younger
Yes.
folks to play older. Is that
Mhm.
a type skill that can be developed, or how do you develop it?
It can be developed. We when the kids join Kids at Heart, or not necessarily join Kids at Heart, because this is not a once you are in a production, you're
Right.
always a kid at heart. But we do make sure that they get training, that they know what they're doing, they know how to develop their characters. We expect them to act as professionals at all times. Savannah can give you a little bit of information about that. But they are trained to act as professional actors and actresses, not as necessarily as children, so that they can give a good show for the people who come to see us. Now, we also offer acting classes and dance classes and voice classes for the community, which we do charge a small fee for, but no child is ever charged to be in a production at Kids at Heart.
Now, Savannah, in line with what Sheila was saying, is that tough as an actor to play older? Well, I'll ask you both ways: play younger or older. How do you feel about that?
So oftentimes I find it a lot easier to play someone who is older because there isn't as much that physically you're having to do. I find that with the younger characters, I have to think more about when I'm bouncing around, when I'm fidgeting, when I'm looking sad or not being focused on things. But with the older characters, it's a lot easier to just have one like central focus.
In Once Upon a Mattress, how old are you supposed to be?
Oh gosh, I would probably say Lady Larkin's about 20, like
Okay.
somewhere around there. I'm not really
Well,
sure.
technically, Savannah, back in those days, you could have been anywhere from 13, because
Yeah.
20 would have been pretty old.
Yeah,
So
anywhere
I
from
was,
like 12 to 20.
we'll say 17.
There
Now,
we go.
what I'm really interested in seeing, Savannah, is you get on this eventual bed, and I guess I don't know. I don't want to give it away, but can you share how many mattresses you have to climb up on, or how tall up is that?
So my co-star Chelsea is the one who gets on the mattress. I actually help put some of the mattresses on there some of the time, but Chelsea has to climb up 20 of the mattresses, which are not really 20 mattresses,
Right.
but it definitely looks to be that way.
So that's quite a trip to get up there. So you don't wind up on the mattress. I don't remember the show
I
that
don't.
well. Okay. But back to Sheila. So the show, let's talk about it in terms of, so I assume there's eventually, won't give it away, but there's a happy ending.
There is a happily ever after. And
Okay.
there's a song called Happily Ever After in
Oh,
the show.
is there two? Now, how
Yes.
many people are in the show?
There are 34 cast members plus about 8 technicians.
Okay. And these are all, most of them are folks with the Kids from Heart program?
They are Maria Frost is our musical director. Candace Dickinson who is the new artistic director of Kids at Heart. She is helping with lights and sound, and she's helped a little bit on the set. We've had Nora Bierce is working with as in set design, Dana Bierce in lighting. But I do want to give a special mention to Lisa Hoffman. Lisa is a wonderful glass etch artist, and she's a great costumer. She sort of does this just not on a regular basis, but she said she wanted to do something special for Kids at Heart. And when she said that, I thought, oh, she's going to make a costume or two for us.
Right.
She has made every single costume,
Wow.
accessory, shoe accessories for every single cast member at her own expense.
Okay. And even as you're saying it, I don't know if she did the costumes, but I'm thinking of how good the costumes were in Newsies, how good they were in Anne with Green Gables, or Anne with an E. And you don't realize, a lot of people don't realize that, how these other people play such an important role in the show. I'll even ask you to give a shout out. Your stage manager is who?
Well, no, actually, 2 of our cast members have stepped up. Vanna, you want to tell them about our 2 stage managers?
Yes, so our 2 stage managers are Emma Shell and Howie Holmes. They are both students at the early college, and Emma Shell and Howie both play knights in the show, but Emma also understudies for the minstrel, who's one of the leading characters in the show. They stepped up when we had no stage managers to take on this huge role that they've never done before, and they've done absolutely amazing.
Have you ever been a stage manager?
I've been an assistant stage manager.
Because I'll ask Sheila about that in terms of even recommendation, that I once read somewhere that a lot of people say every actor should at some point in time be a stage manager. How do you feel about that, Sheila?
Absolutely, because it is probably the toughest job. My job is to get it to the stage, but once that show opens, the stage managers are in charge. And so, I've got 2 high school students, early college students, in charge of 34 of their peers. And that doesn't usually happen, but being in charge of 34 actors, whether they're young or old, is a difficult task.
And talking of giving a shout out, if you can also give a shout out to your daughter, who's not a stage manager in this one. She's been a stage manager, right, in several productions?
Yeah, she's actually she's a well sought after stage manager, and I know she just finished doing sound in Asheville at Montford for Hamlet and the Three Musketeers.
And so
she's currently
in this show, she's doing what?
She'll be coming in the second weekend to do sound for us. But she's also working, I think, getting ready to stage manage a show at, I believe it's not the Magnetic Theater, maybe Attic Salt Theater.
Attic Salt, yeah.
Of a Christmas show that's coming up.
Oh, right. Oh, she's going to be the stage. I think I saw her name in there. Say at Attic Salt. It's a Christmas show, like people won't be familiar with Christmas shows. Not the kids' Christmas show.
Right. But now we do have a Christmas show coming up, which is a Christmas Story, which is a Kids at Heart show that will happen in December. It's that story of the little boy with the BB gun.
Oh, okay. And that's going to be again a Kids at Heart production.
Yes, it is.
Because it seems you're taking away all the good shows, and the adults won't have a chance. But yeah,
we are very fortunate, because when we can have, like, if we're doing what's called a Broadway junior show, we can't have adults in the show. but adults have gotten used to us working in, they enjoy working with the kids. And as a matter of fact, a lot of our young people like Savannah, they're also cast in main stage productions, which, they're competing against some professional actors, college students, and they are actually sometimes cast over those people because of their training that they've had and their professionalism towards what they're doing.
And the Christmas show, will there be some adults in that one as the parents?
There are adults in that show. Oh my goodness! At the moment, my
Okay,
mind is going blank.
Are you in rehearsal for that also?
Yes, we are in rehearsal for that. We've got 2 shows in rehearsal at the moment, and auditions coming up for Children of Eden, which we will have auditions on December the 3rd, and then that show will be on stage in March.
And Savannah, if you would talk a little bit about the process, just in terms of being an actor. So, for example, in this upcoming show, how long have you been in rehearsals for?
Well, we've been in rehearsals since I would say the beginning of September, I think is when we started. And so if it's November now, it's about like a 2-month process. And we start just with choreographing some of the main songs because it's really hard to choreograph almost 40 children into a complicated dance number. And so that's what we start with, and we build off of that until we have the full show done before we blink.
How often do you rehearse?
Now,
Rehearse-
Kids at
Savannah.
Heart rehearses Tuesdays and Thursdays and Saturday mornings for 2 hours. That's it.
Okay, but
We
that's
rehearse 3 days a week for 2 hours.
But that's quite a process. I mean, so you've been working on it for a couple months. That's why, Sheila, I encourage folks to see these productions, because just the amount of time people put into it, they should be seen. And when you're doing that, Savannah, you're also on top of that going to school. Are you in any other productions too? Are you working on any other productions?
I am not right now, but this is the first time in a long time that I've not been in 2, 3, or 4 productions at once.
Well, let me ask you about that, because I'm all about your ability and the ability of other folks as well. So you've actually been in more than one production at a time, or in one and then rehearsing for another.
Right.
What's the most you've ever done at one time?
So I think the most I've ever done at one time is while Newsies was ending, All Shook Up and Steel Magnolias were starting, and while Newsies was beginning, Anne of Green Gables was starting. And so it was like this in 3 months, 4 shows were like all clumped together at once.
Is that tough for you, memorizing different parts and being in different parts
Well,
at one
so
time?
it definitely can be. I think the most notable time where I've had trouble with that is when I was in the Diary of Anne Frank and The Little Mermaid at the same time, because from 4 to 6 I was Flounder, and then from 6 to 10 I was Anne Frank's older sister. So that's definitely the hardest it's been.
And I'll give you another compliment, Savannah, but even as you're mentioning the roles, I saw some of them, but not Little Mermaid. But what I find so cool is that wherever you're in, you're kind of different, which is, I guess, good. You don't want, so it's not, I mean,
Right.
I can see you, and you were so different in Little Women, that it was a side of you I hadn't seen before, and I mean, that's pretty cool to have different kinds of roles. What's been your favorite role to date?
I think my favorite role to date has been Amy March because it was so different for me, because she was very hot-headed, and I am not usually like that unless I'm talking with my siblings.
Now,
So
also in that production was Chelsea Frost, who played Beth, and she is playing Winifred in this production,
okay,
which
so
is the lead role. Mhm.
yeah. So I mean, you must, Sheila, have quite a group of folks to draw from. I mean, it's just, do you find, like, I don't know how you do it, but every year you're finding you're able to get talented folks?
We are, and we have students. I'm not sure how farthest away this year is, but we've had students who join us from Cashiers, from Asheville, from Franklin, and Silva, so all throughout Western North Carolina, and they will drive for those long rehearsals. So
Well, that's pretty
we're
impressive.
very appreciative.
You mean even if they're 14, they'll drive? I mean, that's
Well, their parents will drive them, and the parents will graciously sit out in the parking lot because we don't allow people to watch our rehearsals, so that they will see the magic of the shows on the stage.
And talk to Savannah a little bit about that process, so that in terms of other shows, you also taken some of the courses that Sheila mentioned?
Yeah, so I actually teach one of the courses that
Do you
Sheila
now?
mentioned. Yeah, I teach kindergarten through second graders creative arts, which is just like an introduction into the theater. So what we do is things like we play games, we teach them the parts of the stage, we performed songs and choreographed dances so that they can just start to gain that love for the theater.
Now, I have to tell you something funny because we just had our classes just ended the fall last week, and they did a presentation. Savannah had a class of 8 boys because the creative arts class, for some reason, the boys just love it. Probably because of Savannah, and so it's one of our really popular classes with young boys, and so that's great because we're building up our men's theater department.
Well, no, it's certainly needed because, right, that's one of the tough problems doing musicals, to get, you said, boys, or again, to your credit and to Savannah's credit as well, that you were able to do Newsies, because a lot of people are actually afraid to do it because
Mhm.
of the dancing and they don't have young boys. But talk about that, Savannah, then you were crutchy, so you didn't play a young woman, you played a young boy in that. How is
Yeah.
that? Is that the first time you had ever done that?
No, it's not. So it definitely is not the first time that Kids at Heart has run into, oh no, we don't have boys.
Right.
And the first time that that happened, about 2 or 3 weeks before our show opened during Sister Act Junior, I was playing Sister Mary Patrick,
Right.
and we had went through like 4 or 5 boys who couldn't play this one character, Ernie. So what we did was I played both Ernie and Sister Mary Patrick alongside Drake Frost, James Cloninger, Logan Norman, and Henry Blackburn was Ernie originally.
Was that a
And
challenge to play the both roles?
Yeah, I mean it wasn't that bad. The biggest challenge was getting into that Wemple laughter, being in a suit.
and the funny thing is, all 4 of those boys are in our production of Once Upon a Mattress.
Right. And I know with several names and just, by name, but I enjoy them. And back to even Newsies, again, I don't mean to keep
That's
complimenting
fine.
here,
Well, we loved it.
Savannah, but also to Sheila, that the cool thing also about Newsies is I didn't realize it was you playing that role in the beginning, and I remember my wife asking me, we couldn't figure out this guy, girl, it looked like a little guy. And so you really, with the cap, it was just,
Mhm.
you carried it off, but that's kind of good, Sheila, I guess, that you don't know who an actor is, or it's not, I guess, and a lot of the hot folks seem to do it, even the adults, Stephen Gagne does this very well, others do it
Yes.
as well, that every role they're in, they're different, it's not the same, I find, which is really cool. So you don't see Savannah show the same role 10 times, but everything you're in, is that something you work on, Savannah, to kind of identify each role to a show?
Yeah, so I think one thing is that I purposefully try to audition for roles that I think do not are not something I have done before. I auditioned for Amy thinking this person is the complete opposite of me. I auditioned for Crutchy thinking, well, I'm not a boy, but I did feel more aligned with Crutchy like as a person. I was like, oh yeah. I all those different people, it's nice to be able to play someone who isn't myself. Like, it's just nice and it's refreshing, and it's nice to not play the same character twice.
How's it playing with adults too in the show?
Yeah, so it's really wonderful. I I can learn a lot from them. All the adults in our shows offer such wonderful guidance, especially my sisters in Little Women, Clara Ray Burris and
Oh yeah.
Candace Dickinson. They were just the most wonderful people. And I'd go backstage and be like, "Well, like I don't know what this is supposed to mean." And they'd be like, "Oh, I can help." So, yeah.
Well, and our adult actors also talk about the professionalism of the kids when they're cast in the main stage shows, because I expect them to act even more mature than those adult actors. And it's really funny to watch an adult come into our show, or for one of the kids to go into an adult show and see the kids helping them with their parts. So
And you had told me that too, the first time I interviewed you about Kids at Heart, how professional you keep it. And just talk a little bit about that in terms of rehearsals and being on time and behavior. How do you get that point across?
we talk constantly about what professionalism is, and that this is not a little neighborhood play that people pay money to see this. And our job is not only to tell a story and to entertain the people who come to see the show, but it's to get across a message and to grow as not just performers, but also as people. And if they accept that responsibility, then we hold them to their commitment.
And if folks want to see Once Upon a Mattress, if you could give the key details about when and where and how to get tickets, all that good stuff.
Well, we open next Friday, which is the 11th, and it will run through the 20th. The shows are Friday and Saturday at 7:30 p.m. and on Sundays at 2 p.m. And if they want tickets, they can call 828-456-6322, which is the box office, or go to our website at www.hearttheater.org.
And I should check with you. Theater, you spell which way?
It will go no matter which way you spell it.
Okay.
We spell it R-E.
Okay. And just once again, that detail, the dates again are this coming weekend and the following weekend.
Yes.
And the
next
website
2
is,
weekends.
and the website is?
www.hearttheater.org.
That must be also a tough little bit, Savanna, in terms of, so you're doing all this work and only 6 shows, you know? Do you ever wish a show would be longer? Little Women was, of course.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. I mean, it really depends on the show, I think. There's been some shows where I'm like, yeah, like I wish this would go on forever. And then there's some shows where I'm like, okay, I'm tapping out.
And
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I was just saying, Kids at Heart, now as we've grown, I think when Kids at Heart first started, they weren't expecting it to become what it is now. So it was not given quite as much stage time. But now it is considered one of the main staples of Heart Theater. It is a driving force, and that is basically because of people like Savanna. Because our kids, not only do they act, but they now run the sound, they're stage managers, they can run the lights, and they do that for the adult shows as well because, frankly, they're better trained.
We can also give,
that means I'm trained.
we can also give kudos to person we talked about off before the show started taping, who has Steve Lloyd.
Yes.
And specifically, Steve Lloyd, I'll ask you how he was just recognized by HART, but the also thing with Steve is he was the driving force, I guess, behind the idea of having 2 theaters at HART, which are just incredible. So it increases, right, the chances of you putting on a play that much more so.
Well, we actually have 4 performance spaces. We have what is now called the Stephen Lloyd stage, which was dedicated 2 weeks ago at Steve's retirement celebration, where we performed a show that he was brought to tears by the kids singing to him. They sang For Good from Wicked to Steve, and he was very touched. But he was given this wonderful performance, dinner, and then he was honored by having the theater named after him. So we have that stage area where we perform, which is the main stage. We have the Fichter Studio, which is a smaller theater. We have the Stangmeyer Theater, which we can have dinner theater, theater in the round. We can have a thrust stage. It can be situated in many different ways to give a different view of performances. And then we can also do outdoor theater when.
Oh, that's right.
Yes,
this past summer was a lot of fun. First time I saw outdoor.
Yes.
What's on your agenda, Savanna? Or do you have anything planned after Once Upon a Mattress?
Well, I plan to teach the creative arts class again this upcoming, like starting New Year's. And I plan to audition for the main stage shows at HART, which include things like Big Fish, Spam-A-Lot, Rodgers and Hammerstein Cinderella, and I also plan to be in or help with every Kids at Heart show. The next 2 coming up are Children of Eden and Alice in Wonderland.
Okay, very exciting. And she'll ask you the same thing in terms of we get past this season, what's upcoming for you and the teaching also, the courses.
Well, we will have our classes begin again in January. If you want to register those, just keep checking the website, because in this past year, we had everyone from kindergarten to, I think, our oldest student, which she might not be happy with me saying this, she was 76.
Okay.
So
and she was in the Kids at Heart program too?
Our educational classes are offered to everyone.
Right.
Kids at Heart.
Kids at Heart. Okay.
Kids at Heart. Exactly. So we'll be doing that. We've got the 2 shows coming up in the spring. I have 3 summer camps, because I'm also doing a main stage production for adults in the fall. And then we are looking at performing School of Rock and the Lightning Thief.
What with the kids at
shows.
Heart program?
Yes.
Very
Yes, and I
exciting.
will be directing the good old girls for the main stage.
Okay. Well, anyway, I certainly look forward to all the shows you just mentioned. With the small theater, in the winter I go to those shows there. There aren't typically kids at Heart productions there. Is that correct?
That is correct, because we're still in our main stage season. Kids at Heart.
Okay, that's true. And I guess those shows are typically more mature. Sometimes they're a little bit more mature or older.
They are, or experimental, or we try new things usually during the studio season. But yes, Kids at Heart are still in their main season, so we don't usually participate very often in the studio season.
Okay. If I can just close by, first of all, thanking both Savanna Shaw, becoming one of my favorite. And by the way, I'll ask you, Sheila, this. So I call now, I want to get your opinion on this. I call actors now, I just call them all actors. Your feeling about actors versus actresses? Should I be calling, how do you feel about that?
I call them all actors.
Okay. Because I do now, but it's still, when I write it out, it's funny a little bit. But
Exactly.
do you have a preference, Savannah?
I don't think I have a preference, but when I'm like writing something or talking, saying
Right.
actresses is just such a mouthful. Actors is so much
Oh,
easier.
interesting. But no, the thinking being, in terms of there's not directresses, so it's directors. Right. So actors. Do you ever want to, by the way, direct, Savannah?
Yeah, I actually got to assistant direct Steel Magnolias this past year at Heart.
Okay,
and she was also one of the directors of The Surprising Story of the Three Little Pigs.
Okay.
How could you forget that?
I know, it wasn't that long ago.
And the one Steel Magnolias, that was an adult production, right? It was the regular theater. But Sheila, it's funny because I'll ask actors this, and they don't really tell the truth, but the real truth, supposedly, is that if Savannah eventually turns to directing, she won't have to memorize lines anymore. So that's nobody admits that, Savannah, but.
Well, I'll admit that, except that they're two totally different things. I have just always loved doing both, but as I've gotten older and having to remember those lines, I much prefer directing, especially when I get to work with people like Savannah.
Okay. Well, anyway, I thank you both for being my guests on this edition of the Blaine's World podcast. Also, I thank my producer, Cappy Tassetti. Hopefully, I'll see you at our next podcast, which you can find all over the internet, and find that you'll join us. Thanks, folks, and I look forward to seeing you in Once Upon a Mattress starting this coming Friday. Thanks, guys. You were great.
Thank you.
Thank you.